Hi, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks and welcome back to my favourite time of the week. And I'm really honoured to have an old friend of mine who we trained back doing airborne training, P Company, Lieutenant General James Bashall, CBE. And James has had a very successful career. He's in his early days, he was commanding officer of 2 para. He's been a brigade commander, 1 brigade. He's been a divisional commander, and he's been the commander of Home Command, which is one of the Army Board roles. And now he's advising boards and teams in business. He's left the Army, just finished sailing one of the really challenging legs in the Clipper race around the world. He did a leg of that for about 4 weeks. And also he's the president of the Royal British Legion, among many things he does, as well as sailing and looking after the PT Corps as their Colonel Commandant. James, welcome.
Well,
great having you on the series.
Very kind have me here.
So tell us a bit about sort of what you're currently doing now and how you sort of ended off your Army career, the sort of leadership bits you took with you.
So I've looked to try and establish a better balance in my life beyond the military. I work for myself, set my own company up. As you say, I advise various companies. I'm very privileged to be invited to go onto boards and talk to people about what they do and where I can help, which I find fascinating. I think the commercial world is very interesting. As you say, I want to give something back, so I have a charity job with the Royal British Legion as a president, which is a great privilege. Very humbled to be invited to do that. And then I got my own personal things I want to do, and you talked about sailing, which is something I enjoy. And I'm still the Admiral of the Army Sailing Association, so again, another charity trying to help young soldiers, encourage them on the water and develop them. And just a bit more time with my family. Yeah.
And keeping fit and healthy, I see.
Well, it's a battle, but the PT Corps have been fantastic. They've taught me about junk miles and don't go jogging anymore, and look after your health, and as you say, as we were talking about, perhaps sleep and eat the right things and less of alcohol, all that. I mean, I try and live by that, but it's not always easy.
Well, we chat about that in the second part for the podcast. And when you look back over people who've influenced you and inspired you, who would be a couple of people you'd pick out, and what were their qualities that you thought were inspiring as leaders?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I have thought about this, and it's interesting how you try and shape in your own mind who's shaped you and how you've been influenced by people. I mean, when I left the Staff College after you and I last served together, I was the military assistant to the Commander of Field Army, and I worked for 3 very interesting men. The first was General Richard Swinburne, who very sadly has died recently, but he was a very old-fashioned cavalry officer and didn't have a lot of operational experience, but he was meticulous with his people management. I learned a lot about how to manage people from him, perhaps sort of through osmosis rather than him teaching me, but I watched the way he did his MS, as we used to call it in the military, his report writing, and he really cared about it and did it well. And he also had a lovely touch with people. He didn't always show it, but he really looked after people who around him. And then I worked for General Mike Rose, who had literally just come back from Bosnia and was very much the man of the moment.
An SAS warrior, wasn't he?
I mean, he'd done a huge amount of soldiering. Very interesting, and I learned a lot from him about operational soldiering. He has some great stories, and how to deal with the stress of operational soldiering. And then I worked for Hugh Pike, General Sir Hugh Pike, who I admire enormously, and who was very kind to me. And we spent probably 18 months travelling around together in helicopters around the world, actually, because he was a Middle East advisor. And I learned a lot from him about, I think, just a whole range of the military and what the military is, how it works. Just he saw the bigger picture. He was very good at training, very interested in training. He was very good with people. He used very inspired the way he used to talk to big groups of soldiers. And he also used to make it look effortless. And you sort of try and think, well, I'd like to be able to have the confidence to talk to a large group of men and women like that without sort of being too nervous.
Yeah, but it is great, I think, to work with good people. Yes. I was lucky, even in my short 20 years, to have some good leaders that I looked to, and also some that I thought, perhaps I wouldn't do it that way, but you talked about that with some of the generals and the leaders you met, 1 or 2, you wouldn't do it their way, but that's good. And then, because of course you learn what works and what doesn't. In your own life, we were talking earlier about, we're learning all the time. We make mistakes, even at any grand ranks that we're at. But more recently, tell us a story about when you got something wrong in your sailing when you were, on the clipper race.
I think, I do think it's a general lesson that one of the things that people in high positions can get overconfident. And I'm not saying I was in a high position when I was on the yacht, but I was. It was watch changeover. I came up on deck, and they said, right, we want, the weather's quite difficult. We need competent people on the helm. So I'll go. And actually, I wasn't competent enough, and I had too much confidence. I thought I could do it. And in the dark and in difficult weather, we had what's called an accidental jibe, which means the wind got the wrong side of the sail. We had lines called preventers to try and just prevent too much damage. But nonetheless, it was embarrassing that the yacht came to a halt. Everyone got thrown out the bunks down below deck.
Oh, Richard, the whole thing was...
Yeah, literally, who's on the helm? Bashall, get a grip. And I had to hand over to someone else because I recognised I was beyond my competency in where I was. And it's a small thing. I felt, everyone's very good about it. But I just thought, right, just be careful about what you think you can do. And I think if I try and transpose that to a leadership situation, I would say, just be careful not to be overconfident, and that's why I feel I made mistakes. Like you get too confident about your own ability.
Yeah, humility is a really important thing to keep.
100%, 100%, and you need people to tell you and talk to you. Make sure that you stay very grounded.
Yeah, because and this is where the whole system in business, which is so good, and I do obviously with the leaders of 360 feedback.
Yes.
Just before this session, I was doing a 360 feedback from someone about a leader. What are their strengths? What situations bring out the best in them? Where do they need to develop? Because they're good already, but what would make them even better? And what situations bring out the worst in them? And if there was one behaviour, visible behaviour they could work on, what would it be? And that's really good. And I think it was great meeting Paul Nansen and talking with him, because he's saying now he's gone out and got a master's degree in executive coaching.
Yeah.
The Commandant of Santos. This is the military are now very much up to speed with the importance of coaching, of mentoring, of 360. And so getting 360, which when you and I were doing P Company together, we never got 360. We just blindly carried on doing what we did or learnt from each other. But now people are much more open to it, aren't they?
Well, and it was introduced, and we introduced it to the generalship course. We introduced it to a number of courses in the military, in the army. And I think it's one of the invaluable tools you have as a leader to have people be honest about you.
Yeah.
And to reflect on that. It's not, we must never use it as an assessment tool. It's just something that's there for you personally to help you. And I always say to people, don't try and be something you're not.
Yeah.
Do you know, we're all our own people and we're all very individualistic. But don't try and change and take on a different persona.
A mask.
But understand, however, how it is others see you.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. People understand and then know that at times you appear casual, or at times you appear aggressive, and then you get a good sense of how to play yourself as a leader in a team environment.
Great advice. James, thank you very much indeed.
Well,
it's been great having you on the show.
Great to see you again.
No, really good, and lots of wisdom and experience that you can share, and people love hearing that and learning.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. So I think the podcast has gone down very well. I think we're very hugely beneficial to a lot of military leaders. To ponder and think about the good tips that you'll bring out from all these worthy people you have on your show, apart from myself.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much.